He's the best there is at what he does, and what he does is be played by a 6'2" handsome Australian man. I'm of course talking about Wolverine, who for the last 24 years has been expertly brought to life by the huge jacked man known as Hugh Jackman. His legacy playing this iconic character is unmatched and has gotten universal praise, despite starring in arguably some of the worst comic movies of all time. His version of the character was so popular that despite that stinker of a movie, he still got to have an entire trilogy, then leading to one of the best superhero movies ever in Logan. It can't be overstated enough just how important Hugh's Wolverine has been to the entire genre, but it looks like his run is finally coming to an end. Sad as it may be, it opens the door to a world of infinite possibilities when it comes to introducing a new take on the character. That just begs the question, how should the MCU handle Wolverine? But here's the thing, I've seen a decent amount of people saying that they want Hugh to stick around longer. Deadpool and Wolverine has breathed new life into his version of the character with this fresh take, and it has audiences around the world craving more of him. That begs another question if Marvel should incorporate Hugh's Wolverine into the MCU. And the answer is no. Obviously not. A million times no. This shouldn't even be a discussion. The MCU needs to have a fresh start with the X-Men. There's no room to keep him around much longer. I have no doubt that we'll see him back in the yellow spandex one final time during Secret Wars, since that movie is basically going to be a tribute to Marvel as a whole, but after that he needs to go. I'm glad he's having fun playing Wolverine again, but that whole till you're 90 joke from the movie can't become a real thing. At one point or another, he's gonna have to hang up the claws to let another actor take over. It's gonna be a very emotional day when his Wolverine retires, for real though, third time's the charm. But it means that we can finally embrace the future and a more comic accurate version of the character. But here's another thing. I fully acknowledge that I'm a hypocrite for saying this, but part of me really wants to see Daphne Keane return as X-23 in the MCU. I know. The whole point of Deadpool and Wolverine was to say goodbye to these characters that never got a proper send-off. It gave her closure, but that doesn't take away from the fact that we're still missing out on so much potential with that version of the character. Logan had set her up for a whole life that we never got to see. Hell, before the Disney-Fox Monopoly merger, an X-23 movie was fully planned. I feel robbed that we never got to see that and watch her character grow into the hero that she wished was out there. And as much as I love Deadpool and Wolverine, I'm very annoyed we did not get to see her in costume, so I still need that checked off my bucket list. But the main reason I want her to carry over into the new universe is that she can continue Hugh's legacy as Wolverine while also doing something that's still pretty new. After the Secret Wars reboot, you can have her start off as a member of the X-Men before Logan is introduced. Don't get me wrong, he should still exist in the universe, but have him alone for the time being before bringing him in down the line. Starting off with Laura allows us to have a new character take up the Wolverine mantle who's already earned it and is beloved by the audience. It's an easy way to transition between the two characters and ease audiences into a new actor playing Wolverine. It'll also help to put some distance between Hugh and the new actor so that when we finally get to do Wolverine again, it'll feel much fresher. Instead of going from one Wolverine to another similar version, we'll have Laura to break things up and explore some new lore with. She's a fantastic character in her own right, and I don't want to wait over a decade to see her again down the line. Strike while the iron is hot and interest is reignited in her so that we can see this all-new Wolverine in her full glory. Obviously though, the real endgame here is to get a new version of the Wolverine into the MCU, so let's wipe the slate clean. No Hugh or Daphne, just a new actor brought in to do the character justice. Also, please don't leave a comment down below asking me who should play Wolverine. I am so bad at fan casting and usually just end up going with the popular opinion. If I had to choose one, I do really like the idea of Daniel Radcliffe. He's got the right proportions and is severely underrated as an actor. He could easily bring this character to life. Here's an action item for engagement. Who do you think should play the MCU Wolverine? I genuinely love to hear because there are so many choices it is overwhelming to think about, and whoever it is will have huge shoes to fill. Or should I say, small shoes to fill, because my biggest requirement with the MCU's Wolverine is that he's a short little runt. Hugh is almost a foot taller than Logan is in the comics. This is Short King erasure and I won't stand for it anymore. Gone are the days where these giants tower over us and steal the spotlight. It's time for the shorties to rise up and take back their roles. No longer will we be oppressed and held down by the big men of the world. The future is here and now. It's time to get out our step stools and climb to the mountain to sit atop the world where we belong. Short King world domination is in full effect is what I would say if I were also short, but that's definitely not the case. I don't know what you're talking about. Anyways, Wolverine needs to be short. It's crazy to say, but it's genuinely a fundamental part of his character that needs to be portrayed on screen. It's deeply rooted into his personality and the way he fights. I don't want to see another tall hero. I want to see this short and hairy man take center stage. Also, don't cast someone who's as attractive as Hugh Jackman is. I'm not saying that you should cast someone who's ugly because that would be a really awkward casting call to make, but he needs to be off-putting to look at. Someone who's a conventionally unattractive loser covered in hair with the biggest grumpy frown across his face. You need to be able to look at him and just know that he smells. It's such a distinct design choice to see all these larger-than-life heroes juxtaposed with this pocket-sized furball of a man, and as long as they get the right height, we're already on the right path towards doing Wolverine justice. And also, while we're on the topic of how he should look, I think that we need to see him use the brown and yellow suit as his main costume. It's taken me a while to get here, but I think I can finally admit that the brown suit is better than the iconic blue and yellow. That may be a controversial take, but just hear me out. You can give him the blue when he's working with the X-Men, but his primary look needs to be the brown. The main reason is that this way he actually resembles a Wolverine more, because I feel like that can get lost in the design a lot of the time. What Wolverines in the wild are you seeing that are blue? Just look at them side by side and tell me I'm not showing you the same picture twice. Besides, I feel like you hardly ever see superheroes with brown costumes on. Honestly, off the top of my head, I don't really think there are any others. We have to fact check this in editing, but I really don't think there are any other major superheroes who wear brown costumes. It'll make him stand out more visually, and that's always a good thing. Plus, just look at how gorgeous the suit looked in Deadpool and Wolverine. I'm begging them to keep this same design with the addition of the cowl and slap it onto the next Wolverine. It's way too perfect to only be used in one scene. Alright, we're like 6 minutes into the video already? Yes, that's accurate, you can go check. So let's get into the real fun stuff here with how they need to handle his actual characterization and stories. For starters, I need them to just completely skip over his origin. We're all familiar with it by now, and the last time they tried to tell in a movie we were cursed with this train wreck. Ugh. I also think that his backstory is by far the most uninteresting thing about Wolverine. He's a character who benefits from being shrouded in mystery, only left with a few puzzle pieces that he's forever unable to put together. I understand that at some point those questions need to be answered, but there's a lost art in the unexplained. Having Wolverine be this character who's a tortured soul and wondering how the hell he ended up like that is part of the fun. Only revealing part of his history rather than the full thing is also a really effective way to world build using just implications alone. The mind is a powerful tool, and letting people put his story together on their own can be much more rewarding and intriguing than revealing the whole thing. I'm not a big fan of knowing Wolverine's entire past, so I really hope that the MCU strays away from that and gives us a version whose history is a blur. The part of Wolverine I'm most interested in, though, is his age. Immortals are a dime a dozen in the Marvel Universe, but Logan is the most interesting of them all in my opinion. Obviously, we love him for being a badass with nicer hands, but the thing that is most fascinating to me about Wolverine is his age. He's been around for hundreds of years to see empires rise and fall. He's lost more loved ones than he can count on both hands and claws, along with the fact that he's largely been a weapon his whole life. Only good for killing, he's riddled with the guilt for all the things he's had to do over the years, but always striving to do better. He may be in unbearable pain most of the time, but he just wants to do what's right and do best by the people he cares for. But despite all that, he's still incredibly old and grizzled. Wise beyond his years, but struggling to adapt to the modern world and longing for a way out, but knows he has to keep fighting. It's far from perfect, but the Wolverine touched on this idea a bit, and I wish we could have got to see that more in live action. I love the idea of doing a character study on a man who's had to suffer through so much over the years and see how his mind is holding up in the modern age. It's part of what makes him so unique and should be leaned into in my opinion. That can also be another way to differentiate this version from Hugh's, as instead of this tough and stoic killing machine, he should be this broken and flawed man doing his best. Weathered by age, but unrelenting in his quest to help people and be the best that he can be. One thing I really want the MCU to embrace with Wolverine is how feral he can be. We only really got to see his berserker rage at the tail end of Logan, and even that was only with the help of some juice in his system. We need to see a version of Wolverine who can let loose with his anger. I'm talking rage of biblical proportions. Along with his claws, part of his mutation made him more animalistic. It's become a part of him that he has to live with whether he likes it or not. I love the idea of Wolverine having to keep that more untamed side at bay as he clashes with those savage urges. Logan has been alive for hundreds of years, which means he's seen some shit, but it also means that he's had time to master dozens of different fighting styles. He uses these techniques as a way to manage his anger before his rage takes control. On the surface, you'd probably expect him to be a total meathead, but Wolverine is genuinely really smart and tactical. He thinks things through on the battlefield and bounces around like a surgical killing machine. He may look like a man, but that mutation turned him into a Wolverine hybrid. It turned his senses up to 11 and gave him this compulsion to unleash his frustration like any other beast would. No, not that beast, come on, you know what I mean. He's a wild animal trapped in the body of a short and very hairy man. The Weapon X project only furthered that as it literally programmed him to be a killing machine, and while he's grown beyond it, it's still a part of him that he has to live with and struggles to control. These impulses are part of what drew me to the character because it's such an interesting thing about him that can lead to some even more fascinating scenarios, like when he has to hold back or accidentally loses control or even has to embrace that side of him. It's something I feel that Hugh's take was never properly allowed to dive into, and I'd love to see the MCU highlight that. But while he may be ruthless in his actions, it's crucial to show that Logan is also a father figure. If you ignore the one time he had to drown his own son, and let's face it, we've all been there, he's got a very caring side of him that's important to get right. Logan is the only movie that truly got to showcase that aspect of the character, but it's something I think we need to see more of in the future. It balances out the scary and depressing parts of his personality with something that humanizes him and shows his growth. If he were just to be a one-dimensional one-man army, that wouldn't be too interesting, but to see a troubled man with a dark past work to be better and grow into someone who can help others is incredibly heartwarming. It's a significant part of his development to get to this point and take someone under his wing. Whether it be X-23, Jubilation Jubilee Lee, or the one I most want to see, Kitty Pryde, he's got these dynamics with younger characters that bring out the best of him. No matter how apprehensive he may be and concerned that he has nothing good to offer, they show him that he can be a good father figure and is someone worth idolizing. All that being said, and I cannot stress this enough, Wolverine should not be the main character of the X-Men. Everyone may admire him, but he works best when he's just a side act. We've had to sit through over 2 decades of Wolverine being the face of the X-Men. Every comic fan knows that it should have been Cyclops, but Logan's popularity was so high that they kept putting him front and center at every chance they had. When it comes to the X-Men films, he should only ever be a supporting character. Look at how X-Men 97 expertly handled him. Wolverine still had an important role in the series, but he wasn't hogging up all the screen time. It was a nice breath of fresh air to see him as a member of the team in the background. He had a story with Scott and Jean, but outside of that he mostly acted as another member of the team. It's a perfect spot for him to be in, where you feel his impact when it's necessary, but you don't revolve everything around him and allow him to maintain that sense of mystery. When it comes time to reboot the team and bring Wolverine back into the fold, don't make the same mistake the Fox movies did and have him as the poster child. I cannot go through all of that again. I'm not strong enough. And if they even consider doing it, I'm gonna burn down Marvel Studios or something, okay? This is a threat and a promise. Over the last few decades, there have been 3 live-action Spider-Man, 10 Batman, and 15 Superman, but there's only ever been 1 Wolverine. Okay, I guess there's technically been 2 since Troye Sivan, of all people, played young Logan, but you get my point. Hugh has crafted this beloved legacy as a character and will go down in history as one of the best to ever do it. He was so good that people were able to put aside how wrong he was for the character physically because his performance was just that iconic. It's sad that this generational run is coming to an end again, but it has me excited beyond words about the future for the character in the MCU. His portrayal wasn't without its flaws and inaccuracies, and I'm hopeful that the MCU's take can correct that with a truly comic-accurate version of Wolverine. Give us the rageful short king with the heart of gold that we've deserved for years, you cowards! It's a tall task and one that I don't envy for whoever is the next person to pick up the claws, but as long as they make it their own and embrace the character's history in the comics, they'll do old Forks for Hands justice. But I'm going to go ahead and end the video there. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed what I had to say, feel free to give it a like and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. What do you want to see with the next version of Wolverine? I'd love to hear what everyone has to say and continue the conversation down below. If you want to see another video like this, you can click right over here. If you don't do it, they're genuinely going to make Hugh do this until he's 90. And that man just wants to dance and sing his silly little songs, so please subscribe to free him.